lo cree, no me lo cree. Está caminando sin pisar. No me lo cree, no me lo cree, no me lo cree, no me lo cree nadie. No, no me lo cree, no me lo cree.
So this audio begins with this woman who's out as far as she can into the street from her house. The reason is that something strange is happening in there, and she can see it. Now, it's 1995, so she's holding on and stretching out that phone cord. You might be old enough to remember this. Maybe your parents did this or your grandparents did this, where you would have the phone in the kitchen somewhere in the living room and you would walk around with the phone, with the really long cord. You had to be careful not to trip over it. Well, it's 1995 and that's what's happening. This woman, her name is Clarita, and she's stepping out, right? And she's looking toward the house through the window. She can see her son laying in bed. Well, almost in bed. Because he's floating, levitating, about 1.5 feet above the bed. And she's well aware that person on the other side of the line is not believing what she's seeing. And she knows, nobody's going to believe me, she says. I know nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe me. Now, this story is recorded live from this show way back in the day, 1995, before La Mano Peluda, which is a show called The Hairy Hand that I've already talked about in another episode. This one's called La Mano Pachona. Sounds a lot like Mano Panocha, but don't look up that word. Just don't look it up. But it's the same definition. Like, it's a hairy hand. I guess it was some type of beast or animal or something. Basically, the hairy hand turned into the hairy hand at some point. Anyway, I was listening to this story today. Actually, the reason why I'm outside of the house right now, so you might be hearing birds and roosters and dogs and cars and stuff, is because just like Clarita, I want to be as far as possible to maybe attaching to something as I listen to this. I know the history here now with radio hosts, and I guess nowadays would be podcast hosts that listen to stories like these, and all of a sudden something happens to them. And people are like, oh, it's just a coincidence. It didn't have anything to do with that. Well, we're just going to play it safe. Today we're going to talk about the Caso Clarita, one of the most terrifying phone calls recorded. And if this is true, it matches or exceeds the creepiness of the other stories that we've talked about before. You ready? My name is Edwin, and this is Paranormal Club. This story, by the way, was sent in. I really appreciate you sending in this comment, by the way. This came from Torres Ricardo 90, a comment he left on Spotify on our Paranormal Club podcast. Under My Uncle's Ranch is Haunted, that last episode that I did. And the comment says, well, you do another Mano Peluda episode like Caso Nash or Caso Clarita. Well, here is Caso Clarita. Actually, I had never heard about this before. So this is why I need these ideas, right? Because I've never heard of these. And I listened to it, and I'm like, why am I listening to this in there, right? It's really eerie. Again, it's an 8 to 9 minute story, like a phone call, live recording of it. And by the way, I'm going to link to it. The quality of it is very, very low, just based on the technology back then when you didn't have digital recording capabilities. Basically, I had to record on on tape, basically cassettes, and store those cassettes long term. It was very difficult, right, to do that, because you need to, when you store cassettes, you need to have them at the perfect temperature. This is why VHS tapes get ruined. But anyway, I listened to the whole story. I looked up some analysis of it. I listened to it again, took some notes on it, which I have right here in my computer. And the whole time I'm wondering, why am I doing this in here? Like, I feel like the message to me, hearing Clarita, be as far as she can from the house, I guess try to get away from her son. I was like, you know what, I'm going to record this outside. So here's where we are. The story itself, very creepy how it starts off. So I'm going to take you through it from the beginning and what she's talking about, right? So here's what it is, right? 1995, the host, Victor Manuel Barrios, is broadcasting. he gets this phone call from this woman who's scared. Now, back then, you didn't necessarily ask the person's like full name, full, address, where you're calling from, phone number, like details like that. You would just take the call. It's anonymous caller, right? And it really connected what it's like to tell scary stories for broadcast purposes, right? I think it really connected radio with scary storytelling, at least in Mexico. In the US, it did too, with Coast to Coast and all these other shows. But like anonymous callers really had this a certain pull to it, because it's like they're not trying to get famous off of this. They're just trying to share their story. But sometimes they would get really creepy. Also, this host, Victor Manuel, would talk about really eerie things that would happen around the studio as well, which is topic for another thing, right? Because we're going to definitely dive into some more of these stories. And the podcast show, the radio show that he was hosting was called La Mano Pachona. Again, it went from the hairy hand, it means kind of like a hairy hand, like a monster's hand, into another show that was a predecessor of La Mano Peluda, which I already talked about, called The Hairy Hand. Again, a caller show for scary stories where people would call in and tell their stories live on air. So, here's what Clarita talks about, right? She calls in and she's describing the perfect son. He's 15 years old, and he's a Boy Scout, an A average in school, super smart, respectful. Nothing's wrong with this kid. Right? But one day, this Ouija board comes into the house. And the boy says, yeah, I've used it. We were using it. We're just playing around and we used it. So the mom's like, heck no, get that thing out of here, right? Like, let me get the chancla kind of thing. Like, no, that's not coming in here. But I'm just imagining that scene in my head. She decides to throw out the board, right? But as she's throwing it out, the son goes, hey, wait, hold on, Mom. Like, hold on. Don't mess with it. It's not just a piece of wood anymore. So at this point, the 15-year-old teen, the kid, knows that there is something up. And he's still respectful about it, as in, like, he's trying to basically... He wasn't trying to act evil. Like, he wasn't trying to cause harm. He was trying to watch out for the mom. Like, don't get rid of that Ouija board. Like, be careful with it. Like, don't do that. Something's going to happen, right? Was he trying to protect the mom at that moment? Or was he admitting something? Like, hey, I know something that you don't. But don't, like, force me to tell you about it. Right? It's definitely a strange way to kick off the story, right? Yeah, as is happening. Now, why does she think something's up with her son, right? Why is she even calling? Well, she says that her son has this strange ability to tell when something is going to happen. Like, for example, his aunt would be approaching the house. Nobody knew, right? People back then would just show up. I don't know if that ever happened to you, but like people would just show up randomly and knock on the door like, hey, all of a sudden, like, this is why you always have to have like soda there. And you wouldn't be allowed to drink it because it was like for la visita, like for people visiting. I don't know if you did that, but at my house we did that. And then also the house always had to be clean and your rooms always had to be clean just in case somebody came by. But anyway, that's how it would be. So he would say like, hey, open the door. My aunt is coming. Next thing you know, tuk, tuk, tuk. Open the door and it's the aunt. How would he know that? That happened several times. So she was kind of catching on like something weird is happening with her son. Another thing, the son grew in a very short period of time, 22 inches. I mean, not 22 inches, 22 centimeters. Whoa, that would be creepy, right? I didn't mean to make it sound less creepy. 22 centimeters is a lot. Like, not quite a foot, but like that's a lot. I know, kids grow that fast, especially at that age, but like she found it abnormal. She's like, and he's still getting taller. So she found that really strange. She's like, must be the devil. I don't know if she thought that, but like she found it suspicious. Like this has something to do with all these strange things that are happening, right? Also, remember, he's a highly intelligent kid, does really well in school, Boy Scout, knows about the wilderness and all that. But then he also begins to get a little cocky, a little sharper, like what they would call like conteston, like you would respond like snappy, like you would be on it, a know-it-all, kind of arrogant, you know. He even one time, she remembers that he had come back from school and he was like, ha ha ha, like laughing and making fun of the teacher because he corrected the teacher that the teacher had done a problem incorrectly. And he was like, I had to correct them. But like, imagine that tone coming from a kid, right? Getting a little cocky, not like himself. Again, the mom would know him best, right? And she knows something's up. So the mom starts being like, something's up, like something's up. And then things get a little weirder. She mentions during the call that the boy goes up to the azotea, to the part of the roof of the house, and just sits there rocking like a pendulum for a while. And he doesn't stop. Same pattern, like a pendulum. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The whole thing is bizarre to listen to, right? And she's crying when she's telling. She's in this distress. She's saying, I know nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe me. That these things sound impossible. She's well aware of that the whole time she's talking about the story. The host is a little skeptic about the whole thing, right? I feel like we kind of have to be when we're taking these kinds of stories, because you're also watching out for people who are listening. Like, it's not just you listening to the story. You're kind of watching out for what other people get to listen to and ask the questions that people who are listening might want to know the answers to. So Victor Manuel tries to be like, hey, take a step back here, calm down, you're going to be okay. You know, you have some serious nervous issue right now at this moment. We're going to help you. You're in danger of like going into a panic attack or something. So take a breather. Nothing's happening. Like, just breathe, relax. Everything's going to be okay. You're the one that's going through this mental breakdown. Your son is not at fault. Like, it's you. You're imagining these things. Sort of like that. Like, not quite gaslighting her directly, but saying, hey, you have a problem. Take a step back, breathe, and then tell me the story in a better way. Like what's happening, what you're describing right now is not actually happening. Just, I want you to tell me the story calmly. Again, it takes some analysis. Like, I looked up some reviews of this stuff, and I'm like, I can see that. I can see that kind of, not a condescending kind of way, but like telling her like, hey, you calm down a little bit. Like, take a step back, chill out, then tell me again. Tell me the story. The host asks her for her address, saying like, hey, we're going to send some people out there. Like, we want to help you. But she gets disconnected. And the call ends. The aftermath of when you get such a call, right? And it happens with a lot of shows like this. It happens with the podcast as well, believe it or not. When we drop an episode that's dark, that's on the edge of like, maybe we shouldn't publish this kind of thing, or maybe people shouldn't know about this, we get messages. Like, we've gotten messages where like, hey, you're not supposed to say stuff like this. Don't say things like this on the podcast. You should have warned us. You were going to talk about demons. You should have warned us. You were going to mention the devil. You should have warned us. You were talking, like, messages like that. They do come in. And then every once in a while we get a really, 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 really good story. And that story, you know, takes off and people just start commenting like crazy on it. For radio, it was different, right? People would call in, but like at the start of the next show. So the next day, that's exactly what happens. The station is flooded. Bunch of calls, hundreds of calls from terrified listeners. They're saying, like, what the heck? You know, who is this person? That was so creepy. Like, don't do this again. Or, wow, really good job. You did a really good creepy story. Put out more like this, right? There's people out there like that. They want that. But because again, they try to get in touch with this woman, and there was no caller ID. Again, 1995, they couldn't find her. Now there was this thing there, because once the call ended, the woman didn't call back. They waited, and she didn't call back, and that was actually the last time they heard of her and her son. Absolutely nothing else is known of what happened to them. Now, decades later, audio engineers were playing back that tape, and they slowed down part of the audio by 30%. And under Clarita's panicked screams, there is this third voice there.
¿Qué hago, señorita Manuel?
Prueba número 1, velocidad original.
Remember, the first voice is Clarita, second is the host, and there's a third one. And if, slow down by 30%, it says 2 words. Ten calma. Which would mean like calm down. Direct translation is more like have calmness, but really means calm down. You can hear it clearly. Again, I'll link to that audio specifically on that, for that part. So you can listen to the story if you want to. The original one, if you want to. You can hear it. Calm down. So let's talk about some of the theories here. What happened? We have a few. We have a few ways we can go with this. And if I missed any, please let me know of what you think this actually meant. First off, obviously, the paranormal. This entity possessed the boy, altered him, and would make him levitate. Make him rock back and forth on the roof. Would give him powers to know what was happening. And it all would start with the Ouija board. Second theory would be the psychological theory, right? Which is psychosis, when people reinforce each other's things in their mind, where people say, oh my God, a witch. And then everybody believes they're a witch, and they keep supporting each other on it. And then the next thing you know, it's real. Happens a lot, especially if you watch the news. You're going to see a lot of that. People believing each other's lies and stuff. It just is what happens, right? What they call, a shared psychosis is what they call it. Also, what about like the teens, what they call like teenage schizophrenia? Son going through regular changes, maybe just, he's changing. He's becoming a little more arrogant, maybe more self-confident. I don't know. And the mom sees that, and she's like stressed out about it and starts convincing herself that these things are not normal, and she blames the devil for it, or some demon for it, or the Ouija board for it. And she's imagining things, hallucinating. Maybe her spreading this story also made all these other people believe the same thing. So now we're all freaked out about it, like me, recording outside because of this, right? Another theory, which I think you guys are waiting for me to get to, is it's all a hoax. I mean, it's a possibility, right? Maybe not likely, maybe it is likely. I don't know what you think, but maybe it's a hoax to try to get ratings, right? The radio host says, hey, I want you to call me, tell me you're freaking out, you're witnessing this thing, is what's happening. And it's all, it's a new show, right? And it needs to be good for people to believe it, call in, tell their stories. Dangerous grounds right there, because you're using really creepy, really dark entities to get ratings, and maybe the entity knows and it grants you that. Ooh, it just reminded me of, by the way, if you listen to Horror Story, the other podcast that I make, I talk about the musician who made a deal with the devil, and it just reminded me of that, right? When you do that. There's also this other case of some podcasters. I'm not sure if you guys watch Las Alucines, which is Lupita Villalobos, Quesito, and there's a third podcaster, I guess, that joined in. They recently got into some weird things with this joke that they made about performing a ritual. And now they say that, you can see their lives are changing, but in a really strange way. Like, things are not going that great, and they're blaming supernatural forces. What do you think the reason for this is? What do you think the theories here behind this story are? Is it something paranormal? Is it something, is it like a hoax? Or is it something psychological? Please let me know in the comments what you think of this idea. I'm very interested in knowing, just so we can talk about it, see what we all think about this thing. Because if you listen to if you want, please listen to the story if you can understand it. You can also download the audio, translate it so you can look into it. I can't play a lot of the audio here on the podcast because just like La Mano Peluda, which eventually this show kind of turned into La Mano Peluda, which is that other show, they're super on it. Like as in they're just like, you're using our clip, copyright strike. You're using our clip, like that's ours. Even though it's, we're allowed to do that. The news does that. Nobody tells them anything. But yeah, it's fair use is what they call it. It's allowed in most countries. So, Caso Clarita, one of the most, I would say, like one of the creepiest stories. And I think it was because it was early, one of those early creepy stories that really shook a whole audience, thousands of people that were listening to these transmissions. And even nowadays, when we're re-exploring this case, has gotten this far because of not knowing what actually happened, right? Like, this is why I got that good. I feel like the mystery of us not knowing what actually happened with Clarita and her son, I think is what made it really, really strong. And I know that, it works this way with a lot of scary stories when we don't know what happened. Think the Blair Witch Project. Again, it has these elements, right? You're back in the 90s or early 2000s. I think it's early 2000s. I forgot already. We have an episode on it too. The Blair Witch Project I found super, super creepy because of how we don't know what they're dealing with. Also, the technology was dated, right? So we don't, like, it's a found footage kind of thing. It really added to that vibe, that really eerie, like, oh, something's happening. And if you think about that next story with the episode that I made on El Caso de Josué, which is a story of a man who called in saying that he had been possessed by an evil entity. And eventually he was tied into, like, it was rumored that he had something to do with the death of the host because of what he brought in, because the host died under like through like a mysterious bacteria that he got after meeting face to face with that man that told the story with Josue. It's a bizarre story. If you don't know about it, or you haven't seen it yet, please watch it. Please watch that that story. I actually told it to Michelle as well from in one of our I think 2 episodes ago. We had Michelle, which was my old co-host from a podcast called Scary Mystery Surprise. We were talking about, I told her about this case. So we see her reacting in real time. We also have a solo episode of me talking about it if you don't want to listen to 2 people talk about this episode. So that mystery, I think out of the whole call, again, very short, I think what got me the most was the voice that you could hear. The calm down. What if, the voice that said calm down. What if there was somebody there with her who just said that? It fits with all the theories except for the paranormal one, because suppose she's at her house and she's telling the story and somebody's there like, hey, you're calling the radio? Okay, but calm down. Oh, man, that scared me. That was the dog walking up. Which is possible, right? Somebody there, maybe her son who was actually there, if she's telling the truth, her son saying, hey, like, calm down, like, everything's fine. She's freaking out as the boy is coming up to her without stepping on the ground, without taking footsteps, floating, basically, right? That's what you imagine. That's what I imagined anyway. Also, the idea of live, it's a live recording. Like, imagine she's recording and then she, like, laughs. It's like, oh, blooper, right? It added to the whole thing. Plus, she seems genuinely terrified. And she's like a really good actress. But she seemed genuinely terrified. If you were to ask me if I believe these kinds of calls, I say I believe them. Like, I believe somebody called in and told that story, because I feel like if they really wanted to tell a good story, they would have beefed it up a lot more and they would have added a much stronger conclusion to it instead of having an 8-minute call where somebody's just scared and it disconnects like that. I don't know. I mean, it is creepy, but I feel like if I would have been making something up, I would have made it a little bit longer and with more information. But I mean, who knows, right? Let me know what you think of this. I'm very interested in continuing the study of these stories. Also, if you're interested in you know of other cases like right now where right now Torres Ricardo 90 also said Caso Nash, which is another story. We can go through these, maybe even go through them live. I mean, I have to check the copyright issue because we can listen to it and we can be like talking about it as we listen to it. I think that would be really, really cool. But let me know what you think of that idea, or if you know of any other really creepy stories that you've heard that you want me to go through and kind of analyze or find explanations for, or maybe search where they came from, or some theories as to are they real? Did they actually happen? Or what can we learn from these kinds of stories? So, oh, it really got dark out here. We're going to go through some of the comments from our last episode, which is My Uncle's Ranch is Haunted. And I'll tell you a little bit more. I'm actually going there. Yeah, would be a little over a week. Actually, next week I'm going to be there. Oh, I got chills thinking about it. I'm going to be trying to record there, and I want to keep you guys in the loop of what happens with everything. Now, I'm not looking to do any paranormal investigations necessarily. What I want to do when I get there is get the testimonies, people who have talked about these paranormal things that are happening there, and try to see if there's other cases about rocks being thrown anywhere else. There's also these other cases that they were telling me about out in those areas between those two ranches. I call them ranches because that's what they call them, but they're lots. They're like big lots in the desert, not like enormous where you can't see the end of it, but like imagine like a property that's gated. And you go out there and you're like out in nature kind of thing. And nature in the desert, which I love the desert, by the way. And people tell me that, the desert, there's nothing. And I'm like, I think you've ever been to the desert then. I remember camping in the car in the desert. And as I used to drive along California like that all the time. And sleeping when there's like the stars look like that and you hear all the animals and stuff at night, I'll tell you, there is stuff in the desert. Creepy stuff, yes, but also like a lot of animals and stuff. Like it's a living thing. But yeah, so I will be going there recording, and I want you to stay updated with all this stuff. So follow Paranormal Club Pod on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. And if you want to give me a follow, Edwin Cove, EDWINCOV. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as well. And I'll be posting some of the stuff that I find live because I also want to be putting more effort into social media and figuring this stuff out together with you guys, so you can comment, DM, do all you got to do, so we can keep growing with this show and some of the new one that's coming out. So I'll keep you posted on that. Isabel88 says, love it. Short and sweet. Cool. Thank you for the comment, Isabel88. Ghost Girl, yeah, you're back. I've been listening to your old episodes. I missed you. Are you growing a goatee? Cool. Welcome back. OXOX. No, I'm not growing a goatee, and thank you so much for the comments. Yeah, it's been a while. It was a while from our last episode. It was a little bit, and that was because, there was a lot of stuff happening. But now there's a reason why we're actually going to Mexico now, and we're going to be finding some more stories there now that all this other stuff is all set up and ready. So I'm gonna miss it here. Honestly. I'll be back, but still, I'm gonna miss it here. I think if you look, I don't know if you're watching on video, but if you are, right behind me, you can see a really long distance. So you can just see trees and fields and houses out in the distance, and there's two dogs that just roam free here. They just hang out. They're my friends now. Lola's right here, right next to me. Oh man, I just tapped her. Now she's gonna want belly rubs. I knew it. Oh, here comes the other one because she gets jealous. So I'm gonna stop before they push the camera. Let's see if we can continue with the comments. Noemi says the Spanish is completely comprehensible. LOL. Oh, that's because I played a recording in the last episode of my uncle and the neighbor talking, and they speak very fast. I think that played one of the slower sections just so that you guys can understand it. But yeah, actually, I should really record my other uncle. That guy, I can't understand anything. Like, like here, just like, I'm like, but I try not to like say that I don't understand because I don't want him to feel bad. But like, I mean, I have to tell him to slow down, or I need to speak slowly myself so that he can slow down a lot, you know? DJ Amar says, yeah, I've been waiting for a new episode. Cool. Well, you have it. You have this one too. Thank you so much, DJ. I appreciate you coming back. MZS Durbin says, so good to see a new episode. Really love this pod, and Edwin's the best. And I replied, as always, if you say that this podcast or myself, I'm the best, I will always tell you that you're the best because you are, and you need to know that. But I appreciate the comment. So we're going to find in the comments about who's the best. I'll keep saying that you're the best, listener. You are the best. Pumpkin04 says, would the rocks be at certain times of the day like a pattern? I've heard of people saying rocks reverberate near portals, which also have weird weather and magnetic properties. You know what? That's that. I replied here. I don't know why I said replied that way. I replied here. That is actually a really, really good question. That's actually what I was hoping to get. Good questions that I hadn't thought of asking or trying to figure out, which in this case is, does it happen at certain times of the day? Could the weather, could the position of the sun or something be affecting a certain magnetic thing there that's causing rocks to lift up and fall on the roof? Now, the strange thing here is that the rock, I don't know if you caught that part, where the rocks lift up 2 meters above the ground and the neighbor has seen that. That's strange. I really want to look into that. But I know that they fall during the day. They say that around noon. Also, another pattern that's really strange is after a rainstorm, they stop for a while. So that's another thing. I believe that that's happening. My uncle has told me that it's happening. I just don't know what the cause of it is, which is really what gets me. What's with the rocks? I asked, right? And the answers here were someone's throwing them, duendes, there's a scientific explanation, or ghosts or other supernatural reasons. And the winner here was duendes. And that's what my uncle says too. Everybody's saying that it's duendes, which are elves or goblins or the little people of the hills. Ooh, really eerie. But yeah. I'll be updating you guys. Again, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, just so that I can post there and show you guys what I'm up to there. And I'll also show you what the place looks like so you can see and maybe give me some more ideas of where to look. I'm also going to be looking into some of the ghost stories that they have there again. Very interested in figuring it out. It still bothers me, by the way. I don't know if you caught that in the last episode, but it really bothers me to not know what the heck is happening. But yeah. Michelle says, the slingshot theory has some validity. It is strange, though, that it's so random. Spooky about the cowboy wandering around. That part really got me, too. The cowboy part, really creepy. Thanks for sharing my link. I think the answer is out there. It makes me wonder, do the rocks get thrown when the neighbor is making noise with the machinery by something, like something doesn't like it, or do they get thrown when a cowboy shows up? Congratulations on your marriage and best of luck with your move to Mexico. Thank you. Thank you for that, Michelle. This is another good point right here about the noise from the machinery. That is exactly what my uncle and the neighbor have said. Because the neighbor is a welder. Like, zzz, you hear that sound. My uncle deals with saws and hammers. And I'm thinking, first off, the first thing I thought was like, could a saw be throwing something up into the ceiling, the roof, and hits from the bottom up, right? But no, they've seen rocks. Another thing I thought about was like, hey, what if some neighbor's trying to sleep and they're like, hey, shut up, and they throw a rock, or I do this motion with the slingshot, but like, what if they throw a rock so they could be quiet? But what if it's this entity or a paranormal supernatural thing that doesn't like that kind of sound? Duendes, they say, don't like to be bothered, so it is a possibility. I appreciate the comment there. Gabby says, my grandparents' ranch in Mexico is very rural and has a very spooky vibe to it. Gabby, by the way, if you know of people like that have that like storytelling custom, something that they do when they gather and tell stories, let me know, because this is what the new show has to deal with. It's capturing these moments on video and audio. And I want to like memorialize this and keep them so that we can have a record of these stories, because you know, some of us think about our grandparents, our uncles who are getting older, our parents who are getting older, and they're the ones that know these stories. And when they go, the stories go. So I want to save as many as I can. And I want to also use that as an introduction for myself into a new, which should be my culture, but it isn't because I wasn't there in Mexico. So I'm trying to connect with that again. And I feel like that's going to be the perfect introduction for me to get into it that way. And I want to do that so people can use that as a bridge to kind of learn about that through me, through a person who grew up in the United States, wondering and learning about Mexican culture and Mexican ghost stories. Also, not just Mexico, by the way, also Hispanic families or families of people who were not, or the parents or grandparents were not from the United States, but they grew up in the United States and they also have stories to tell. Not just Hispanic, not just Latino, not just Mexico in general. Like, is these kinds of stories that I want to save. What I want to think is more like older relatives kind of stories and family stories. That is the ones that I want to keep. Thanks a lot for the comment, Gabby, by the way, and say hi to Mike. As always, thank you so much. Tanya says, when you said he had no choice, I thought you were going to say he got a gun to shoot the dog. You know what? There was comments here. People saying that, and I'm like, no, because I did say a part there which is he had no choice but to, and then I said, to get holy water and put on the dog. But yeah, anyway, that's all I got for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow Paranormal Club Pod over on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We're going to be posting some of our newer content there as well, and some of the other stuff from our other shows. And if you want to follow me to see what I'm up to, follow Edwin Cove, EDWINCOV, over on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And I'll keep you posted. You can also DM me there. You can leave comments. You can leave likes and all that stuff. It's going to be really cool to catch up with you over there. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon.